Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished adjusting the quantum drive on the luxury yacht. The pristine white corridors of the vessel gleamed under artificial lighting, a stark contrast to the grimy cargo haulers he usually worked on. This job was different, though. The pay was excellent. And for once, he didn't have to worry about dodging asteroid pirates or dealing with faulty life support systems. The yacht belonged to Princess Zarathul of the Vekthari Empire, one of the most powerful alien civilizations in this sector of the galaxy. The Vekthari were known for their pale blue skin, elongated skulls, and most importantly, their absolute belief in their own superiority over all other species. They controlled 17 star systems and had never lost a war in their 3,000-year history. Marcus had been hired through a third-party contractor to fix some issues with the ship's faster-than-light drive. The work was routine for someone with his expertise, but apparently, no Vekthari engineer wanted to get their hands dirty with what they considered menial labor. That suited Marcus just fine. He preferred working alone anyway. The engine bay door hissed open, and Marcus looked up to see Princess Zarathul herself entering the compartment. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her pale blue skin seeming to glow under the bright lights. Her dark purple robes were adorned with precious metals and gems that probably cost more than Marcus made in a year. Her large, dark eyes surveyed the engine bay with obvious distaste. "Are you finished yet, creature?" she asked, her voice carrying the typical Vekthari accent that made every word sound like a command. "I have important matters to attend to, and I cannot afford delays caused by your primitive understanding of technology." Marcus continued working on the quantum resonance chamber, not bothering to look up. "Almost done. Just need to calibrate the flux inhibitors and run a diagnostic. Should be ready in about 20 minutes. The princess moved closer, her footsteps echoing in the metal chamber. 20 minutes? I was told this repair would take no more than an hour. And you have already exceeded that time frame. Perhaps I should have hired a more competent mechanic, instead of settling for whatever inferior species was available." Marcus finally looked up, meeting her gaze directly. Most aliens found human eye contact uncomfortable. But he had learned long ago not to show weakness. The previous repair job was done poorly. I had to undo their work before I could fix the real problem. Unless you want your drive to fail mid-jump and leave you stranded in deep space, I suggest you let me finish properly. Princess Zarathul's expression darkened. In Vekthari society, no one spoke to royalty with such directness. Her culture demanded absolute deference from all lesser species, and humans were certainly considered among the lowest forms of sentient life. "How dare you speak to me in such a manner?" she hissed, stepping closer until she loomed over Marcus. "Do you have any idea who I am? I am Princess Zarathul, heir to the Vekthari throne, commander of a dozen battle fleets, and ruler of billions of subjects across 17 worlds. You are nothing but a primitive ape who has barely learned to use tools." Marcus set down his plasma torch and stood up slowly. At 6 feet tall, he was still shorter than the princess, but something in his calm demeanor seemed to give her pause. "I'm just a mechanic trying to do his job," Marcus said quietly. "I don't care about your titles or your empire. I was hired to fix your ship, and that's what I'm doing. You can insult me all you want, but it won't make the work go any faster." The princess's face flushed a darker shade of blue, a sign of extreme anger among her species. "You insolent creature. Do you think your pathetic little species can hide behind the Galactic Accord forever? The protection treaties mean nothing when you show such disrespect to your betters." She activated a device on her wrist, and suddenly Marcus found himself surrounded by 4 Vekthari guards in full battle armor. Their plasma weapons were drawn and aimed directly at him. The princess smiled coldly, revealing her sharp, predatory teeth. "You have insulted the honor of the Vekthari Empire," she declared formally. "According to our ancient laws, such an offense demands satisfaction through combat. You have moments left to live, human. I suggest you use them to beg for mercy, though it will not be granted." Marcus looked around at the guards, then back at the princess. His expression remained completely calm, which seemed to unnerve her more than if he had shown fear. "Combat, huh?" Marcus said thoughtfully. "What kind of combat are we talking about here?" "I assume your people have rules about this sort of thing." Princess Zarathul laughed, the sound harsh and grating. Indeed we do, creature. Single combat. No weapons except what nature provided. My champion against you. To the death. It is a formality, of course. No human has ever survived ritual combat against a Vekthari warrior. And if I refuse, then my guards will simply execute you here and now for your disrespect. At least in combat, you will die with some semblance of honor. Pathetic, though it may be. Marcus nodded slowly, as if considering his options. All right then. I accept your challenge. When and where? The princess seemed surprised by his calm acceptance. Most species begged for mercy when faced with Vekthari justice. The combat will take place in 1 hour in the ship's cargo bay. I will summon my champion, and you will have that long to prepare yourself for death. Fair enough, Marcus said, turning back to his work on the engine. I'll just finish this repair first. Wouldn't want to leave a job half done. Princess Zarathul stared at him in disbelief. You continue working? Do you not understand what is about to happen to you? Marcus picked up his plasma torch again. I understand perfectly. But I have a professional reputation to maintain. Besides, you're going to want this drive working properly if you plan to leave this system anytime soon. The princess gestured to her guards, and they reluctantly holstered their weapons. She had expected the human to collapse in terror, or at least show some emotion. His casual indifference was deeply unsettling. Very well, she said coldly. Use your final moments as you see fit, but know that when my champion tears you apart, it will serve as a lesson to any other inferior species who might consider showing such disrespect to their betters. After the princess and her guards left, Marcus continued working in silence. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about the last time he had been forced into a situation like this. It had been 3 years ago, on a mining station in the Kepler system. A group of Thrakari smugglers had decided that killing a human mechanic would be good entertainment. That hadn't worked out well for them. Most aliens in the galaxy had heard of humans, but few really understood what they were dealing with. Humanity was a relatively new species on the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. The other species saw humans as weak, primitive creatures who had gotten lucky with their technology. They had no idea about humanity's history. They didn't know about the countless wars that had shaped human evolution over millions of years. They didn't understand that every human alive was the descendant of predators who had clawed their way to the top of Earth's food chain through sheer determination and an absolute refusal to give up. The galaxy's dominant species had evolved on worlds where they were the undisputed apex predators from the beginning. They had never faced the kind of existential threats that had forged humanity's character. The Vekthari, for all their technological advancement and military prowess, had never fought against impossible odds just to survive another day. Marcus finished the engine repair and ran a full diagnostic. Everything was functioning perfectly. He gathered his tools methodically, taking his time to ensure everything was properly secured. There was something almost meditative about the routine of packing up his equipment after a job well done. A chime from the ship's communication system announced that the hour was up. Marcus made his way to the cargo bay, where he found Princess Zarathul waiting with a crowd of Vekthari nobles and crew members. They had turned this into a spectacle, no doubt expecting to watch a primitive human be torn apart for their entertainment. In the center of the cleared cargo bay stood the champion. He was massive, even by Vekthari standards, standing nearly 8 feet tall, with bulging muscles that strained against his ceremonial combat gear. Ritual scars covered his arms and chest, each one representing a victory in single combat. His name was Korthak, the Undefeated, and according to the whispered conversations Marcus overheard, he had killed over 30 opponents in ritual combat. Behold, human, Princess Zarathul announced loud enough for everyone to hear. This is Korthak, my personal champion, and the greatest warrior of our generation. He has never known defeat in combat, and he certainly will not be humbled by a primitive creature such as yourself. Korthak stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Marcus. I have killed warriors from a dozen species, he growled, in heavily accented Standard Galactic. Your death will be quick, but painful, as befits one who has shown disrespect to royalty. Marcus looked up at the towering alien warrior, then glanced around at the assembled crowd. They were all watching with eager anticipation, expecting to see him broken and bloody within minutes. Before we start, Marcus said calmly, I want to make sure I understand the rules. Single combat, no weapons, fight to the death. Is that correct? Princess Zarathul nodded. Those are the ancient laws. Korthak will use only his natural strength and combat skills to destroy you. When you are dead, your body will be ejected into space as a warning to any other humans who might consider showing similar disrespect. And there's no way to call this off? No possibility of apologizing or making amends? None whatsoever. You have sealed your fate with your insolence, Marcus nodded thoughtfully. In that case, there's something you should probably know about humans before your champion tries to kill me. And what might that be? Creature? Marcus smiled for the first time since the confrontation began. And there was something in that smile that made several of the watching Vekthari take a step backward. We're not actually a primitive species, he said quietly. We just let you think we are. The cargo bay fell silent at Marcus's words. Princess Zarathul's expression shifted from confident superiority to confusion. Korthak, the undefeated, simply laughed, a deep rumbling sound that echoed off the metal walls. Empty words from a desperate creature, the champion said, flexing his massive arms. I have studied the combat capabilities of many species. Humans are known to be weak, slow, and fragile. Your people have no natural weapons, no enhanced strength, no protective hide. You are prey animals who accidentally discovered space travel. Marcus began removing his work jacket, revealing arms that were lean but corded with muscle. That's what we wanted you to think. Tell me, Korthak, what do you know about Earth's history? I know it is a death world that somehow produced a species too weak to properly conquer it, Korthak replied dismissively. Your planet is covered in deadly weather, poisonous plants, and creatures that should have wiped you out eons ago. Yet somehow, you survived through luck and technology rather than strength. Death world, Marcus repeated, rolling up his sleeves. That's the first accurate thing you've said. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world by the Galactic Survey Corps. Do you know what that means? Princess Zarathul stepped forward, her earlier confidence beginning to waver. It means your planet is barely habitable. Most worlds that support intelligent life are Class 3 or 4 at most. A Class 12 rating indicates extreme environmental hazards. Extreme is putting it mildly, Marcus said, beginning some light stretching exercises. Earth has massive predators that can crush a car in their jaws. We have weather systems that can level entire cities. Our oceans are filled with creatures that could swallow your ship whole. Every continent has dozens of ways to kill you. From venomous insects to bacterial infections to plants that can dissolve your skin with a touch. The gathered Vekthari were listening now, their earlier bloodthirsty excitement replaced by growing unease. Their own homeworld was a peaceful Class 2 planet with mild weather and few dangerous animals. And yet, Marcus continued, humans didn't just survive on this nightmare planet. We conquered it. We became the apex predator of a world that was actively trying to kill us every single day. Do you want to know how we managed that, Korthak? The champion was no longer laughing. Something in the human's tone was beginning to penetrate his confidence. Speak, if you must. It will not save you. We became the most efficient killers in the history of our planet, Marcus said simply. We didn't evolve claws or fangs or natural armor because we didn't need them. We developed something far more dangerous than any physical weapon. Marcus tapped the side of his head. We became smarter than everything that wanted to eat us, and when that wasn't enough, we became more ruthless, more determined, and more willing to do whatever it took to survive. We turned warfare into an art form. Princess Zarathul was beginning to look genuinely concerned. Warfare? Humans are known to be relatively peaceful. Your species has been members of the Galactic Accord for decades without any significant conflicts. We're peaceful now because we choose to be, Marcus explained. Because we learned something important during our rise to dominance. When humans go to war, everybody loses. Even the winners. Ard died. He began removing his boots, moving with the casual efficiency of someone preparing for a familiar task. Let me tell you about human military history, Princess. We've been fighting wars for over 10,000 years. Not border skirmishes or territorial disputes like most species. Total wars. Wars where entire civilizations were wiped off the face of the planet. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. Marcus's voice remained calm and conversational, which somehow made his words more disturbing than if he had been shouting. We had something called World War II, he continued. In just 6 years, humans killed over 70 million of our own species. We dropped bombs that could destroy entire cities in a flash of light. We built machines that could kill thousands of people per day. We turned warfare into an industrial process. Korthak was beginning to look uncertain. Impossible. No species could sustain such losses and survive. We had a global population of over 2 billion at the time, Marcus said matter-of-factly. 70 million was just the cost of business. And that wasn't even our bloodiest war. We had conflicts that lasted for decades, killing significant portions of our population each time. But we kept coming back. Stronger and more determined than before. He finished removing his boots and stood in his stocking feet, looking completely relaxed despite being about to fight for his life. The thing is, we didn't just fight each other, we fought everything. We hunted species to extinction just for sport. We drove predators that had terrorized us for millions of years into hiding or complete extinction. We turned an entire planet into our personal kingdom through sheer, bloody-minded determination. Princess Zarathul was no longer smiling. You speak of your species as if it were some kind of plague. Not a plague, Marcus corrected. A force of nature. See, most species evolve on worlds where they're either predators or prey. Humans evolved on a world where we were both. Constantly. For millions of years. We developed the mindset of prey animals always alert, always paranoid, always ready to run or hide. But we also developed the instincts of predators. We learned to hunt in packs, to plan complex attacks, to never give up until our target was dead. Korthak was growing visibly agitated. Enough talk, human. Your words cannot save you from my strength. Marcus looked at the towering alien warrior with something approaching pity. That's the problem, Korthak. You think this is about strength, physical power, muscle mass, natural weapons. But humans learned long ago that strength isn't what wins fights. Then what does? The champion demanded. Stubbornness, Marcus said simply. The absolute refusal to quit, no matter how badly we're outmatched. We call it determination. But really, it's just weaponized stupidity. When a human decides that something needs to die, it dies. Eventually, he began rolling his shoulders, loosening up his muscles. You see, Korthak, you've spent your entire life fighting opponents who follow rules. Species that surrender when they're beaten, that acknowledge defeat when it's obvious. You've never fought something that simply refuses to stop coming at you, no matter how much damage it takes. The cargo bay was deathly quiet now. Even the ship's background hum seemed muted. Princess Zarathul was beginning to realize that she might have made a terrible mistake. There's a story from human history, Marcus continued conversationally. A human soldier named Roy Benavides. He was shot multiple times, had his jaw broken, was bayoneted repeatedly, and was so covered in blood that the medics thought he was dead. But he kept fighting for 6 hours, saved 8 of his fellow soldiers, and only stopped when there was literally no one left to fight. When they tried to put him in a body bag, he managed to spit in the medic's face to prove he was still alive. Korthak's confidence was rapidly evaporating. You're just trying to frighten me with tales. Am I? Marcus asked. Let me tell you about something more recent then. 3 years ago, I was working on a mining station when 5 Thrakari smugglers decided it would be fun to watch a human die slowly. They had me cornered in an equipment bay, armed with shock prods and particle knives. He flexed his hands, and several of the watching aliens noticed old scars across his knuckles. The Thrakari are bigger than humans, stronger, faster. They had weapons, and I didn't. By all logical calculations, I should have died within the first few minutes. What happened? Princess Zarathul asked, though she was beginning to suspect she didn't want to know the answer. I killed all 5 of them, Marcus said calmly. It took me 43 minutes, and I had to be hospitalized for 2 weeks afterward. But they were all dead. Station security found me sitting in a pool of blood, still hitting the last one with a wrench even though he'd been dead for 10 minutes. I just couldn't stop. The silence in the cargo bay was becoming oppressive. Korthak was no longer flexing or posturing. He was staring at the human with growing alarm. The thing is, Marcus continued, that's not unusual for a human. We have thousands of documented cases of humans taking impossible amounts of damage and continuing to fight. Humans who fought off entire packs of predators with nothing but their bare hands. Soldiers who held positions against overwhelming odds, simply because retreat wasn't an option. Civilians who walked dozens of miles with broken bones and internal injuries, just because their families were depending on them. He stood up straight, and for the first time, there was something predatory in his posture. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the fastest or the most technically advanced. But we are absolutely, completely, utterly incapable of giving up. When a human decides that something is going to happen, it happens, period. Princess Zarathul was backing away now, her earlier arrogance completely gone. Perhaps we can reconsider this challenge. Surely there's been a misunderstanding. Oh, there's been a misunderstanding, all right, Marcus agreed, his voice taking on a harder edge for the first time. You thought you were dealing with a primitive animal that would cower before your power. What you actually did was threaten a member of the species that conquered a death world through sheer, bloody-minded stubbornness. He looked around at the gathered Vekthari, and several of them took involuntary steps backward. You see, Princess, humans have a saying. Mess with the bull. Get the horns. You decided to mess with me because you thought I was weak and helpless. What you don't realize is that every human is the descendant of the most successful apex predators in the history of our world. Korthak was visibly sweating now, his earlier confidence completely shattered. Perhaps combat is not necessary. We could simply declare the matter settled. Marcus smiled again, and this time, there was absolutely nothing friendly about the expression. Too late for that. Big guy. You see, you made this about honor and respect, about teaching lessons to inferior species. Well, you're about to learn something about humans that I really wish you hadn't forced me to demonstrate. He began walking toward the center of the cargo bay, his movements casual but purposeful. The human government makes us take psychological evaluations before we're allowed to work in alien space. They want to make sure we can control our more aggressive instincts. They want to prevent incidents that might damage human-alien relations. He stopped in the center of the makeshift arena and looked directly at Korthak. I passed those evaluations by lying through my teeth. The truth is, I've been looking forward to a good fight for months, and you just volunteered to give me exactly what I've been craving. The champion looked around desperately for support. But Princess Zarathul and her entourage were all backing away from the combat area. They had finally begun to understand that they were about to witness something far more violent than they had bargained for. Come on then, Korthak the undefeated, Marcus said, settling into a fighting stance that looked deceptively relaxed. Let's see how your winning streak holds up against a species that turned warfare into an art form. Korthak charged with a roar that shook the cargo bay walls, his massive frame moving with surprising speed for something so large. In Vekthari combat, the first strike usually determined the winner. Their fighting style relied on overwhelming force and intimidation to break an opponent's will. Marcus didn't move until the last possible second. Then he stepped aside with fluid grace, letting Korthak's momentum carry the alien champion past him. As the Vekthari warrior stumbled forward, Marcus drove his elbow into the back of Korthak's knee with surgical precision. The champion went down hard, his leg buckling at an awkward angle, but he was tough and experienced, rolling away from Marcus's follow-up kick and scrambling back to his feet with impressive agility for someone his size. "First lesson," Marcus said calmly, circling around the larger alien. "Humans don't fight fair. We fight to win." Korthak snarled and swung a massive fist toward Marcus's head. The blow would have been devastating if it had connected. But Marcus ducked under it and drove his fist into the champion's solar plexus. The alien doubled over, gasping for air, and Marcus followed up with a knee strike to his face. The champion staggered backward, blue blood streaming from his nose. The watching Vekthari nobles gasped in shock. No one had ever drawn blood from Korthak so quickly in combat. "Second lesson," Marcus continued, pressing his attack. "We study our enemies. I've been watching you for the past hour, learning your movement patterns, identifying your weaknesses. You telegraph your attacks like you're sending a formal invitation." Korthak wiped the blood from his face and attacked again, this time more cautiously. He was the experienced fighter, and quickly adapted his strategy, using his reach advantage to keep the human at a distance. His longer arms and legs should have given him a decisive advantage, but Marcus moved like water, flowing around the champion's strikes, and always managing to land hits of his own. Where Korthak relied on power, Marcus used precision. Every strike was carefully calculated to cause maximum damage while conserving energy. "Third lesson," Marcus said as he avoided another wild swing and landed a devastating punch to Korthak's ribs. "Humans are endurance hunters. We don't try to kill our prey quickly. We chase it until it collapses from exhaustion, then we finish it off." The fight continued for another 10 minutes, and it became increasingly clear that Korthak was outmatched. Despite his size and strength advantage, he couldn't land a solid hit on the human. Marcus moved with an economy of motion that spoke of years of training and real combat experience. Every time the champion tried to grapple, Marcus slipped away and landed another precise strike. The alien's face was now a mess of bruises and cuts, while Marcus looked barely winded. Princess Zarathul watched in growing horror as her supposedly invincible champion was systematically dismantled by a creature she had dismissed as primitive. The other Vekthari nobles were murmuring among themselves, their confidence in their species' superiority beginning to crack. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "Korthak has defeated warriors from dozens of species. How can he be losing to a human?" "Fourth lesson," Marcus said as he caught Korthak's wrist and used the alien's own momentum to throw him across the cargo bay. "We learn from every fight. Every technique, every strategy, every mistake." Human military academies study battles that happened thousands of years ago, looking for lessons that might save lives in future conflicts. Korthak crashed into a stack of cargo containers, sending them tumbling across the deck. He struggled to his feet, clearly dazed, and beginning to show signs of serious fatigue. His breathing was labored, and his movements were becoming sluggish. Marcus, meanwhile, looked like he could continue fighting for hours. His breathing was steady, his stance relaxed but ready. There was something terrifying about his calm composure in the middle of brutal combat. "You want to know the real difference between humans and other species?" Marcus asked as he stalked toward the battered champion. "You fight until you think you've lost. We fight until we're dead, and sometimes we keep fighting even after that." Korthak made one last desperate attempt to turn the tide. He grabbed a piece of debris from the scattered cargo containers and hurled it at Marcus with all his remaining strength. It was a violation of the single combat rules, but the champion was beyond caring about honor at this point. Marcus caught the heavy piece of metal out of the air and immediately threw it back twice as hard. It struck Korthak in the chest with a sickening impact, sending him crashing to the deck where he lay motionless. The cargo bay fell completely silent, except for the sound of Marcus's steady breathing. He walked over to where the champion lay and checked for vital signs. Korthak was alive but unconscious, his body finally overwhelmed by the cumulative damage. "Fifth and final lesson," Marcus said, turning to face Princess Zarathul and her shocked entourage. "Humans don't just win fights. We make examples of our enemies to discourage future challenges." The princess was pressed against the cargo bay wall, her earlier arrogance completely gone. She looked at Marcus with barely concealed terror, finally understanding what she was dealing with. "Your champion is alive," Marcus continued, his voice returning to its earlier calm tone. "I could have killed him easily, but I chose not to. Do you know why?" Princess Zarathul shook her head mutely. "Because dead martyrs become legends. Broken champions become cautionary tales. Korthak will live. But every time someone mentions his name, they'll remember the day a human dismantled him without breaking a sweat." Marcus began walking toward the exit, pausing only to pick up his boots and jacket. "I'm going to finish loading my tools and then leave your ship. You're going to pay me for the repair work I completed, plus a substantial bonus for the entertainment I provided." You cannot simply leave," the princess stammered. "There are protocols, forms to file with the Galactic Accord about combat outcomes." Marcus turned back with that predatory smile. "Princess, I'm going to give you some free advice. The smart thing to do right now would be to forget this entire incident ever happened. Don't file any reports. Don't seek revenge. Don't even think about pursuing this matter further. And if I refuse, then you'll discover what happens when humans stop pretending to be civilized," Marcus said quietly. "You see, the Galactic Accord has some very specific rules about how member species are supposed to treat each other. Threatening to execute someone for doing their job is generally frowned upon." He gestured toward the unconscious Korthak. "This was self-defense. You attacked me. I defended myself. But if you escalate this situation, it becomes something else entirely. Something that might require an official response from the human colonial authority." Princess Zarathul's face went pale at the mention of humanity's military organization. "You wouldn't dare involve your government over such a minor incident." "Wouldn't I?" Marcus asked. "Let me tell you something about human politics, Princess. We're very protective of our citizens. Very protective. When humans are threatened, we tend to take it personally." He pulled up his sleeve, revealing a small tattoo on his forearm. It showed a stylized eagle clutched in mechanical talons, surrounded by stars. Princess Zarathul recognized it immediately. "You're military," she breathed. "Retired," Marcus corrected. "Human Colonial Marines, 3rd Assault Division. 12 years of active service, including 3 major planetary conflicts. I became a mechanic because I wanted a peaceful life, but that doesn't mean I forgot my training." The implications hit the princess like a physical blow. She had just threatened and attacked a veteran of the human military's elite forces. If this incident became known to the human colonial authority, the diplomatic consequences could be severe. What do you want?" she asked weakly. "I want to go back to my quiet life fixing engines and staying out of trouble," Marcus said. "But I also want to make sure that other humans don't face this kind of treatment in the future. So, here's what's going to happen." He began putting his boots back on, his movements casual despite the gravity of his words. "You're going to spread the word through Vekthari space that humans are not to be trifled with. You're going to make it clear that attacking human civilians is a very bad idea. And you're going to do it in a way that makes it seem like you're being generous and enlightened, rather than admitting that you got schooled by a primitive ape." Princess Zarathul nodded frantically. "Yes, of course. It will be done exactly as you say." "Good." Marcus finished dressing and headed for the exit. "Oh. And Princess? Next time you want to insult someone, you might want to find out what species they are first. The galaxy is full of things that are much more dangerous than they appear." As Marcus left the cargo bay, he could hear frantic conversations breaking out among the Vekthari nobles. They were beginning to understand that their entire perception of human capabilities had been completely wrong. Princess Zarathul knelt beside her unconscious champion, her mind racing. She had always believed that the Vekthari Empire was the pinnacle of galactic civilization, superior to all other species in every meaningful way. But in the space of one brutal hour, that certainty had been shattered by a single human mechanic. She thought about the stories Marcus had told, about humanity's violent history and their refusal to surrender, even in the face of impossible odds. She thought about the casual way he had dismantled Korthak, making the galaxy's most feared warrior look like an amateur. Most disturbing of all, She thought about his claim that humans were pretending to be primitive. If that was true, if humanity was deliberately hiding their true capabilities, then what else were they hiding? How powerful was the human military if their retired mechanics could defeat elite alien warriors without effort? The princess made a decision that would reshape Vektari policy toward humans for generations to come. When she returned to the imperial court, she would not mention her humiliating defeat. Instead, she would speak of the importance of maintaining good relations with humanity, of treating human citizens with appropriate respect and courtesy. She would present it as a matter of diplomatic wisdom rather than fear, but the message would be clear. The Vektari Empire would no longer consider humans to be a primitive species. They would be treated as equals, or better yet, as potential allies rather than subjects. Meanwhile, Marcus Chen finished packing his tools and prepared to leave the yacht. He had accomplished more in one afternoon than years of formal diplomacy might have achieved. The galaxy would be a little safer for humans now. And that was worth a few bruised knuckles. As he walked toward the docking bay where his own small ship waited, Marcus allowed himself a small smile. He had told the truth about wanting a peaceful life. But sometimes peace had to be earned through strength. And if there was one thing humans understood better than any other species, it was how to earn respect through demonstration, rather than negotiation. The yacht's engines hummed to life as Marcus departed, the quantum drive he had repaired functioning perfectly. Princess Zarathul would have many things to think about during her journey home, and all of them would involve reassessing her empire's relationship with the strange, dangerous species that called itself humanity.